to the Putting Your Business on the Map podcast. I'm your podcast host, Landon Blake, a land surveyor living and working in Central California. Happy to have you here. Let's go ahead and dive right into today's episode. The title of episode 21 is Finding New Clients, the differences between business development and marketing. This is another video in our set of videos on finding good clients for your survey business. I think this is the second video in the set. So in the first video, we just kind of gave you an overall introduction to this topic of finding new clients. And today we're gonna dive into this difference between business development and marketing. So just as a reminder, I'm working on reducing my word whiskers. So be patient with me as I work on those, please. I counted about 42 different so's in a 2-minute span. I'm on the last episode, number 20. So I obviously have more work to do. What are we talking about today? We're going to talk about what business development is. So I'm going to give you a definition of that. That's number one. Number two, we'll give you a definition of marketing. So we're going to define each of those terms and talk about them for just a few minutes. And then number three, we're going to talk about how are business development and marketing similar and how are they different. What are we not talking about in the episode today? We are not doing a deep dive on business development and marketing. This is only, this is only an introduction. So it's not a deep dive. I will probably do an episode dedicated to each of these. So we'll do an episode dedicated to business development, and we'll do one or more episodes that are dedicated to marketing. Probably just one episode on business development, because surveyors do a reasonably good job of that. Most surveyors that I know that own their own business or at a management level, but surveyors tend to do a really bad job of marketing. So I want to spend a little more time on marketing when we get to that. When we get to that point in the set of videos. I want to just tell you a story. This is a story I forgot to tell in episode 18, I think. And it's a short story, but it illustrates why I wanted to talk about these two things on the podcast, business development and marketing. So it was my second or third job out of college. I think it was my third job as a survey manager. And I started at a fairly large company. I don't know, they were 100 people, maybe 50 or 100 people, which is decent sized for surveying and engineering. It's what I would call a mid-sized company. And when I originally got hired, I was brought on to basically take over and fix up the UAV mapping department. So they had one guy that was flying UAVs, but he wasn't a land surveyor, and he wasn't doing a really good job, and they wanted to expand the use of that technology. So that's why I got hired. I don't know, that lasted about 2 months maybe. So shortly after I came on to the company, there was a pretty big shakeup in the management structure, and I ended up getting my boss got a new boss, and so that changed things a little bit. And I'm not sure exactly why, but they made the decision that instead of running their UAV mapping department, I was going to basically be put in charge of the California Central Valley region, they called it. And all of a sudden I was given the goal of bringing in, roughly $2 to $3 million a year worth of work. Now, I had done business development as a survey manager at my previous two jobs, and I was good at it. but I had never really done marketing. I'd been exposed to marketing a little bit by one of the principals at the second place I worked at out of college. But I'd certainly never been trained in marketing, and I didn't have a good understanding of it and how it worked or what its purpose was. And so all of a sudden I was in charge of bringing in $2 or $3 million a year worth of work. And I had no idea how to start doing that. And I was supposed to get some help. The company had some clients in Southern California, and I was supposed to get connected with them and be able to leverage those relationships to get work in the northern half of the state. And that just, for some political reasons, that didn't happen. And so all of a sudden I found myself with this huge challenge, which was I needed to get $2 or $3 million a year worth of work, and I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I could take an existing opportunity and prepare a proposal or a statement of qualifications, but I didn't know how to generate opportunities. And even though I have this podcast, I'll let you know I am not naturally charismatic at social events. So I've gotten better at it as I've gotten older, but I was a very shy teenager, very shy boy and shy teenager. And, you know, I can't just work a room at a conference or a networking event like a lot of people can, like my wife can, for example. It's very hard for me to do. I've gotten better at it, but it's still a little bit awkward. And so I had no idea how I was going to get this work. And so what I did was I bought a book. It was by Jeff Blount, and it was called Fanatical Prospecting. I'll try and remember to have Carly put a link to it in the show notes. And it was the very first book I read on sales. And it was a great book. I don't know how applicable it is to B2B marketing, which is what I needed to learn. It was more of a B2C book, business to consumer, but it introduced me to the idea of prospecting and lead generation and managing leads in a database. And Jeff is an excellent teacher. I bought a couple more of his books, so I highly encourage you to check him out. I think he's got a podcast too, but he's a great teacher. And he taught me a lot about just sales. And I remember my wife had a family in Yuma. She had a cousin in Yuma, Arizona, and we drove from Stockton to Yuma. It's a long drive. It's a 2-day drive. And I remember I listened to that whole audiobook on the way to Yuma and back. Now, why do I tell you that story? Why am I telling you that story? Almost everything I've learned about marketing as a survey business owner, I have had to teach myself. So I've learned from books or podcasts or magazine articles or just through experience. None of the places I've worked as a survey manager ever taught me how to do marketing and sales. And that's not good. That's a problem. So we don't do a good job of this. We'll talk about in episode 22 about the difference between domain expertise and business expertise. And part of the reason I think this happens is because most surveyors and civil engineers don't have good business expertise. So we don't take a structured approach to marketing or teaching people how to market. And so I had to teach myself. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk about it. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it today on the podcast. So there's a so. Oh, I got to work on those so's. The first part, now that I've told you that story, the first part of the episode is about business development. So I want to define business development and talk a little bit about what it means, like what are business development activities in a typical surveying and mapping business. Here's my definition of business development. Business development is taking a lead or an opportunity that's what we call warm or hot. And when we do the episode on business development, we'll talk about the difference between a cold lead and a warm lead. But it's somebody that has some interest in the service that you provide. So taking a warm or hot lead and converting that into a client with an executed contract. That's it. That's what business development is. Fairly simple definition, right? You take an opportunity or a lead and you turn it into a client with a contract. I just want to point out here, I'm talking about a professional services contract. So business development for surveyors and mappers is not selling products. We don't sell products. We sell professional services, and there's a big difference. Business development is much more important in a organization that provides services than it is in an organization or a business that sells products. So if you're a business that sells products, a lot of what you do is just marketing, and the business development process is very short or simple. You're just making essentially a sale. But with professional services, it involves a lot more. We'll talk about that in a minute. So there is a distinction between the type of business development you do when you're selling professional services and when you're selling products. Now, I've mentioned this before, but that's what most surveyors think of when you talk about marketing. They think that business development is marketing. So somebody calls and says, I need a boundary survey or I need a topo survey. They prepare a proposal. They think that is marketing. That is not marketing. That is business development. So you've already got the lead there. Right? We're going to talk about what marketing does in a minute. But if you already have the lead and you're just turning that into a client with a contract, that is business development. So they have something called the sales funnel. You can Google it. I'll try and do a PYBO team extra on the sales funnel. But the business development is the bottom half of the sales funnel, whereas marketing is the top half of the sales funnel. So in the sales funnel, when you get to business development, you're about halfway through the sales funnel. So you've already got a warm lead now, and you're going to take it through the rest of the sales process. So what does business development include? So I've got 6 things here that business development includes. Number 1, needs discovery. That's where you find out what does the client really need. And oftentimes they don't need what they think they need. So that's a whole process, and there's an art to it. Number 2 is crafting a solution or solutions. So you're going to craft a solution that meets the client's real needs. Number 3 is developing a scope of services and preparing an estimate. Number 4 is preparing all the proposal documents. Number 5 is negotiating contract terms, executing the contract, administering the contract, getting all the insurance in place, coordinating site access, that kind of thing. And number 6 is handing off the job to the technical team. So in my view, all of those things are business development, those 6 things. So just to run through them again: needs discovery, crafting solutions, scope of services development and estimating, preparation of proposal docs, contract negotiation, execution, and administration, handoff to the technical team. Now, there's a lot there, right? That's a lot of stuff. So business development is super important, and it involves quite a bit, right? So getting the lead or the opportunity is just the first part of the sales process as a professional services firm. Then there's these other 6 really critical things that have to happen. And so why is that important? Why is business development important? Like I said, it's a critical part of acquiring revenue and keeping the business in the black. If you can't execute well on those 6 things, your business is going to be in trouble. So if you do business development poorly, good opportunities are going to be missed. And by the way, that's a lose-lose. That's a lose for your business, and it's a lose for the client. If you're finding good clients that are a good fit for the services you provide, it's a win-win if you can get those folks under contract. It made me think about a client I recently picked up a month or so ago, and he's a farmer, and he's a super kind, mild-mannered person, and he's got a small project that involves some land use planning and some sequence stuff like that, and he was able to find it. He's an hour and a half away, but he was able to find us on the web, and we got him under contract, and we've been able to help him. And I worry about what would have happened if he'd have got hooked up either with a bigger firm that wasn't going to make his project a priority, or a smaller survey shop that didn't have the expertise he was going to need to get through the planning and environmental issues. So he's a really good fit for us as a client, and he needed to find us. There isn't a doubt in my mind we are probably his best option for a consultant for his particular project within 3 hours of where I sit. And so if you're not doing a good job of business development, your clients like that are losing out because they don't find you and get you under contract, and you're losing out on their business. So that's, if it's done poorly, good opportunities are going to be missed. The second thing is you're not going to meet the needs of your clients. So remember, part of business development is needs discovery and crafting a scope. And then number 3, you're going to expose your business to dangerous liability or financial loss. That's the part of business development that has to do with, crafting the right kind of scope and getting the contract terms negotiated, doing the fee estimate. That's all that's super, super important. So who at your business should be doing business development? I really believe that should be high-level technical people. So if you're a surveying and mapping business, that should be your senior land surveyor, more than likely. Why? Why those people? Because to do business development well, you need to have domain knowledge. So in other words, the technical knowledge. You need to have some business knowledge, right? Management of risk, liability, budgeting, scheduling. And you have to have the authority to act, right? To negotiate contract terms and to execute contracts. That's usually a fairly high-level person in the business. So unlike marketing, a lot of marketing, business development usually can't be delegated to support staff. Maybe after a lot of training, but it really needs to be a high-level person in your organization. So if you're a small shop like me, you have to be prepared for the fact that your senior land surveyors are going to spend a good chunk of their time on business development. That's just one of the most important jobs that Brian and I do here at RH. Okay, when do you perform business development? So there's 3 things that need to happen for you to really start doing business development on a particular lead. So you need to have the lead, and it should be a warm or hot lead. Don't waste time on a cold lead. And we're going to talk more, I think, in the next episode we do on this series, which would be 23, I think. We're going to talk about how to control your proposal costs. And a really big part of that is not wasting time on cold leads if you don't need to. Make sure that you have a good consultant-client fit. So make sure that you're working for the right type of client for your business. And then make sure you have the bandwidth to provide good service. If you can't check all 3 of those boxes, don't waste time doing the business development. So you need a warm or a hot lead. You got to have a good fit between the potential client and your business. And you have to have the bandwidth to be able to provide good service. If you can't do those 3 things, don't waste time on the business development. We're going to shift gears now, and we're going to talk a little bit about marketing. But before I dive into that topic, I'm just going to take a quick break, and we are going to hear from our sponsor for this episode for just a quick minute. Would you like to manage your land surveying or civil engineering data in a GIS? Do you work for a small organization or utility company? Have people told you that there isn't a way to get started with GIS for your data unless you have a $3 million budget and a dedicated ArcGIS server in your basement? That just isn't true. You can get started with GIS for a few $1,000s using QGIS and the expert consulting advice from the team at Redefine Horizons. We've been using open source software like QGIS to manage land surveying and civil engineering data for over 20 years. Call us to see just how easy it is to start. We can help you do an initial GIS needs assessment for your organization and introduce you to QGIS on the desktop for no charge. You can find our team on the web at www.rh-survey.com. All right, now that we've heard from our sponsor, we'll get to this next main section of the episode. We're going to give a definition of marketing and talk a little bit about what marketing involves. So here's my definition. Marketing is creating awareness of the business and its services and generating leads. So one sentence, pretty simple definition. So the leads there, or the opportunities, the leads link marketing to business development. So that's how the two connect, right, in the sales funnel. Marketing generates the leads. Business development takes the leads and attempts to convert them into clients with an executed contract. So as I mentioned before, marketing is the top half of that sales funnel. Right? Business development, the bottom half, marketing is the top half. So what kind of activities does marketing include? Marketing includes creating awareness of the problem that your business solves, creating awareness of the solutions you offer, creating awareness of how the business provides those solutions. In other words, differentiating yourself from the other solution providers. It establishes the brand of the business, and it provides, as I mentioned, differentiation. In other words, what makes you different from your competitors. So what are some concrete actions that you can take to accomplish those things with your marketing? I just have 3 examples here. Creating content for social media, maintaining and improving your business website, hosting, sponsoring, or attending events. All of those things are examples of marketing. Again, this is not what most surveyors think of when they think of marketing, right? They think of business development, but it's not business development. Remember that a major part of marketing is just creating awareness, right? Awareness of the problem, awareness of the solution, awareness of how you solve it, awareness of your brand. So why is marketing important? Good marketing generates a steady flow of qualified and warm leads for your business development team, right? And by the way, in a small business, you might be both. You might be the marketing team and the business development team. That's okay. So good marketing, there's a so, I apologize. Good marketing creates that steady flow. In order to survive, your business needs a steady flow of qualified and warm leads. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we do the episode on controlling proposal costs, but you need both. You want the lead to be qualified. In other words, they're a good fit for your business, whatever that is. And they have the problem that you are trying, they have the problem that you solve, and they're trying to get it solved. So that means they're a warm lead. So qualified and a warm lead. So if you don't do a good job of marketing, what's going to happen? One is you're going to waste time on cold leads. In other words, leads that aren't warm or qualified. So you don't want to do that because you're going to have a really bad hit rate on those proposals. If you do a bad job of marketing, you're going to get a poor client consultant fit. So you're not going to be attracting the right type of clients because people aren't going to know what makes you different from other surveyors or what makes your brand different. So marketing is, again, like business development, super critical. So it's not that one is more important than the other, or you need one and not the other. You need both. That they both are a vital part of the sales funnel. So who in your business should do the marketing? I do think, unlike business development, marketing can, a huge chunk of your marketing, 90 or 95%, can be delegated to support staff with the proper training. And in my outline here, I underline proper training. So they need to understand your business and your target client types, and they need to have some level of technical knowledge about the solutions you provide. And that's the harder part, is getting them the technical knowledge, accurate technical knowledge. So if they don't have that knowledge themselves, you have to provide them access to it. In other words, you need to have some of your technical people involved in reviewing the marketing material that the marketing team is putting out. Then I'll try and do a PYBOTM extra that just talks about how your technical staff and your marketing team can work together, make sure that your marketing information is accurate from a technical perspective. That's important. You want to be putting out accurate information there, and also that your marketing effort, you want it to align with your business strategy, right? Or you're going to be getting the wrong types of jobs and the wrong types of clients. So when should you do marketing? We talked about when you should do business development. When should you do marketing? The answer is all the time. All the time. All the time. Don't wait until you need work. I had one of the first engineers I worked for. He was a jerk, but he was really smart and he knew a lot about business. He taught me quite a bit about business, actually. And one of the things he used to tell me is, Landon, we have to market all the time. We have to market when we're busy, because if we don't market when we're busy and we wait till we need work, it's too late. And he was super smart. I understand that now. Marketing does not immediately result in leads, usually. We talked about that a little bit on the first episode in this set. Marketing takes time. That effort takes time to kick out leads. So you need to do it all the time. Don't wait till you're slow. If you wait till you're slow, you're too late. So in an irony, you need to market while you're busy. Now, if for some reason you're doing such a good job on your marketing that you get more leads than you can handle, you can turn down those opportunities. Or you can refer them to people in your professional network. Or you can slowly shift to clients and projects that are a better fit for your team. So, you quit doing as many lot surveys and you do more shopping centers or whatever it is for your business. So I really don't see a downside to just doing effective marketing all the time. You can always pass on opportunities, right? It's way better to have too many opportunities than not enough. At a minimum, you can refer people to other good surveyors, and you can lift the tide of the a rising tide lifts all boats. You can help good surveyors in your network find good opportunities. That's not a bad thing, and oftentimes those surveyors are grateful. So then I had a last note here. Consistency over the long haul is critical. So it's really important. I've seen that with our YouTube channel. I never planned on our YouTube channel being a huge part of our business at RH, and it's become that. And that was just because I would do, a couple videos a week, and I've done that for 4 years, and it's just had a huge impact. So even small marketing efforts, if you're consistent, are going to have a significant impact over time. All right, there's marketing. There's an overview of marketing. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsor again, and then we'll cover the last topic of this episode, which is how are business development and marketing similar? Google Earth is a great tool. It is the software that brought the power of geospatial data to the masses. A lot of land surveyors use Google Earth to manage their data. However, your organization can quickly outgrow Google Earth for survey data management. Is there a better way? Yes, you can use QGIS, an open source desktop GIS, to manage your organization's land surveying and civil engineering data. The team at Redefine Horizons can help you do that. They've got decades of experience managing land surveying and civil engineering data using open source GIS tools. The best part is this doesn't need to cost $1 million. It is very easy and inexpensive for your organization to get started with QGIS. As a bonus, QGIS can import and export the KML files used in Google Earth. That means you can still use Google Earth when it makes sense. Check out Redefine Horizons on the web at www.rh-survey.com and let us know how we can help get you started with QGIS. There's no charge for your initial consultation. The last part of this episode, we're going to talk about the differences, the similarities, and the differences between business development and marketing. So let's talk about how they're similar. I mentioned this a couple times, but business development and marketing are both important parts of the sales funnel. So marketing is the top part of the funnel. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump the mic there. And business development is the bottom part of the funnel. We're going to do a PYBO Team Extra, and we'll walk you through what a sales funnel looks like. And both are critical to high quality revenue and growth. So they're closely related. Remember the link between the two is the lead, right? Marketing generates the lead. Business development takes the lead and turns it into a client with an executed contract. So the lead is the link, but they're both connected in that way, and they're both really important. You need both. You need marketing and business development. I think one of the reasons why surveyors tend to be poor is because we do a fairly good job of business development and a really horrible job of marketing. So that's part of what we're going to try and change in this podcast, right? We teach you guys about marketing and help surveyors do a better job of marketing. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out, because I don't. But I think I do more. I think more about marketing, I believe, than most surveyors that are managers or business owners. So, but if you're listening to this podcast, that means you think about it a lot too. So that's great. So how are business development and marketing different? See, I said so again. Oh, that's really hard. I've got 3 ways that they're different here. So the ultimate goal of marketing is to generate warm, qualified leads. That's what you're trying to do when you market. The ultimate goal of business development is to turn leads into clients with executed contracts. That's how they're different, right? One creates the leads, one converts the leads. And as I mentioned, surveyors get this confused. They think writing proposals is marketing. It's not marketing. It's part of business development. And at most surveying and mapping organizations, marketing gets neglected. And I'll add, even though most surveying and mapping organizations do business development, they do a horrible job of training people on business development. Like, I was writing all kinds of proposals in my first couple jobs as a survey manager or assistant survey manager, but I didn't get great training on that. I really didn't. I didn't get great training. That it was mostly like, here's our scope template, kid. Go write this scope and fee. That is not. They didn't teach me anything about needs assessment or liability management or negotiating contract terms. I just did not get great training, and I think that's pretty typical. And I mentioned, the other thing I mentioned is we neglect marketing, which is not good. All right, that's a wrap, guys. That's what I had on this episode for business development versus marketing. I think it'll be fairly short. You know what? I'm going to try and remember. We'll do a PYB OTM extra on marketing and why it's important, marketing and business development, and why. How the typical surveyor learns that and why that needs to change. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about, if you don't want your future leaders of your organization to improve, to go through what I did, if you want to improve that process, how might you train somebody to do business development and marketing? And that's something I've just started to do here in the last 6 months. I've got a couple of young ladies here that work for me that I hope will be future leaders of this company, and I'm trying to look for opportunities to get them involved in marketing and business development. You'll notice we've got a new RH has a new podcast. It's called At the Corner, and I'm trying to get younger people in my organization an opportunity to participate in the podcast and get some experience with that kind of marketing. So check that out. It's called At the Corner podcast. You'll see my survey technician, Nikki, is on there with me the first couple episodes. So I'm thinking about that. We'll try and do an extra on that. And then, by the way, I think marketing is also important, even if you're not a business. If you are a surveyor for local government or a DOT, I still think marketing is important. Now, I realize you probably don't have a budget for it. You may be limited in what you can do, but I still think it's important. Maybe we'll do another PYBO team extra on what does marketing and business development look like in a nonprofit or a local government or state government or even the federal government. And I don't know if I have all the answers to that, but I'd like to maybe I'll reach out on LinkedIn and try and talk to some government surveyors and get their thoughts on how they do marketing and business development, because I think it's an interesting question. Maybe we'll try and get that in an extra PYBO team extra. Okay, so in conclusion, we talked about what business development is. I gave you a definition. We talked about what marketing is. I gave you a definition of that. We talked for just a few minutes about how they're similar and how they're different. Our next episode will be domain expertise versus business expertise. That's something that my partner Brian talked to me about a little bit. I think he sent me an article about it, and it was a really interesting article and an intriguing topic, and so I wanted to talk about it on the podcast. And the subtitle is "Why Most Surveyors Suck at Running Their Shop." And you could include me in that. The first couple of years I had RH, so I'm not trying to be arrogant or critical. So we'll talk about why do you need both of those, domain expertise and business expertise, and where do you get them if you don't have them. We'll talk a little bit about the similarities between running a restaurant and running a survey business. You may not think there are any similarities, but there are, and it has to do with domain expertise and business expertise. So I hope you guys will tune in for that. And I want to thank the team at Redefined Horizons for sponsoring our podcast. I appreciate that. My team did that today. And so if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, reach out and let me know. I would appreciate that. That'll help me keep Carly employed. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next episode. I think it'll be episode 21. I'm taking a minute at the end of this episode to point you guys to an article by land surveyor Greg Ones. The title of the article is Preventive Tactics in Surveying, Curbing Client Issues Early. I believe it's the first article in a series of articles that Greg is going to write about good communication with your clients as a land surveyor and a survey business owner. It's a good article. Skim through it. Read it. It's got good suggestions in there. For example, it talks about monitoring your jobs and having open communication with the client, which I believe are important. So it's a good article. Greg reached out to me and asked if I would share that, and so I wanted to do that on the podcast. I think we need, as land surveyors, we need to talk more about this, right? So Greg is, like me, Greg is trying to help land surveyors be better business owners, and I think that's an extremely beneficial and healthy thing for the profession. So I wanted to point you guys to that article. We are going to put a link to it in the show notes. I'll try and remember to have Carly do that for me. But it's on the website for Kaduru Stone. Kaduru Stone is the project management software that Greg and his company produce. So if you're not using a good project management tool right now, or you don't like the one you got, so if you're running your business in Microsoft Excel, or you're trying to use a project like Microsoft Project, which might be overkill for your business, check out this product. Check out that product by Greg, and check out some of the articles that he's got on his website. He's doing a good job of educating land surveyors about business issues. Like I said, I think that's super healthy. We need more of that. So I wanted to give Greg a shout out at the end of this episode. Thanks, Greg, for your work, and I look forward to seeing you succeed in your business, helping surveyors with their project management. As we wrap up the podcast today, I want to do a couple things. I want to let you guys know where you can find the podcast, and I also want to let you know how you can support the podcast if you've enjoyed it. So let's start with that first thing. Where can you find the podcast? The podcast lives on the web at landandblake.com/PYBOTM. So if you go to my website, landandblake.com, up at the top, you'll find a menu. Go to Learn. It's the second link in the Learn menu. That'll take you right to the podcast. We have got links to download all the episodes there in MP3 format, and we also have the show notes. You can also find the podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/@PYBOTM. All of the episodes are also uploaded there. We have the podcast on Spotify, so you can find the podcast in all of those places. Second thing, how can you support the podcast? There's a few different ways you can do that. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast, reach out to me with an email, phone call, or text message. We can talk about your job opportunity for senior land surveyors, or if you have a high quality product or service for land surveyors and mappers, we can also talk about that on the podcast. You can also subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or Spotify. Tell a friend about the podcast. Share one of your favorite episodes on social media for us. And then finally, if you'd like to make a real difference, you can go to the On Point Workshops page at Patreon. We've got a tier there, membership tier for $20 a month. You can join and support the podcast, and you get extras. We call them PYBOTM extras there. So we try and do one or two extras from each episode, video and audio, as just a little thank you to the folks that support us for $20 a month. So if you got the price of a medium pizza in your budget and you want to support the podcast, the best way to do that is on Patreon. That will help me pay for Carly. Carly is the virtual assistant and digital marketing extraordinaire that helps me with all of the unseen back-end work on the podcast. So editing, maintaining the web page, doing the show notes, that kind of stuff. Carly's great. I'd like to keep her around. One way you can help me do that is by becoming a subscriber or a member on Patreon. So appreciate everybody that's done that already, and I also appreciate the thank you notes I've gotten from several of you for the podcast. That makes a difference. I know everybody's busy. I appreciate you guys taking some time out of your busy schedule to send a thank you note. So please support the podcast, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks.